All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of Learn, Do, Grow Marketing for Painters. Very excited for this episode. Today, we're actually going to be covering how to get your painting business ranked on Google Maps. So, it is a very important topic, one that people generally don't know a whole lot about. And so, we'll be kind of taking a deep dive into what you can do to show up in the coveted 3-pack, because a lot of calls and a lot of organic activity goes to the painting companies that are in that 3-pack for the different service areas that they cover. It is updated for 2021. There have been some changes last couple of years, so we'll kind of cover how it has evolved and what that means for you and your painting business today. Now, just as a reminder, I'm Brandon Pierpont from Painter Marketing Pros. If you want to talk, you can reach out to us at 1-800-813-4385. Again, that's 1-800-813-4385. You can also shoot me an email directly. That's brandon@paintermarketingpros.com. Again, brandon@paintermarketingpros.com. And if you want to schedule a strategy session where we take a deep dive into your company's specific situation and see whether or not we could be a helpful partner for you, you can go to www.paintermarketingpros.com/schedule. Again, that's www.paintermarketingpros.com/schedule. All right, so let's dive right in. So first and foremost, the digital dominance method. We touch on this at the beginning of each episode. We're largely running through these different topics, not exactly sequentially, but we're covering a lot of them throughout the different episodes. And this is really the bird's eye view of marketing. So it's essentially how you want to make sure that you are digitally dominating. Right? Because you don't want to have just one fishing line in the water. You don't want to be fully dependent on one or even two or really even three different marketing mechanisms. You want to kind of have that holistic omnipresence in the minds of your prospects. So we will be taking a deep dive today into the Google My Business listing and how you get found there. In a future episode, we'll be covering Google Organic, which shows up kind of directly below the 3-pack, and that's essentially search engine optimization. We'll be covering some search engine optimization today as well, because that has a lot to do with how you get ranked for your Google My Business as well. And then our last episode was on the pay-per-click, so Google Ads. And so essentially we're covering the full spectrum of how you show up in a Google search. Which is important because different people go to different, go different ways. Some people click on the ad, some people click on the organic, and a lot of people click to call, especially because a lot of searches are being done on mobile nowadays. They click to call with the Google My Business listing in the 3-pack. So I know this is a recording, but if I could have your attention, you'll get more out of it. So turn off your cell phones, turn off your Facebook. You may be listening to this as a podcast, in which case, I guess just pay attention. But if you're serious about doubling or tripling the leads, for your painting business, then the next 60 minutes are going to be really helpful for you. So what we're going to cover again is what has changed with Google Maps. How do you show up in that 3-pack? It used to be a 7-pack, now it's a 3-pack. And then what is our 4-step proven process for getting you ranked? There are a lot of things that you can do to get ranked, but there's a lot of noise out there, right? So it's the 80-20 Pareto's principle. What are the 20% of things that you need to do, that you need to nail, that you need to make sure you get right, that will get you the 80% of the results and make sure that you're showing up. And who am I? Why should you listen to me? So I grew and sold a successful service-based business using my marketing knowledge. It's Rich Details, a mobile auto detailing business, industry partner of the PCA. Prior to launching Painter Marketing Pros, I ran a successful generalist marketing agency. And Painter Marketing Pros works exclusively with painting contractors. So we have far deeper industry expertise than other agencies, and that is extremely important in marketing. Nearing completion of my book, Complete Guide to Internet Marketing for Painting Contractors, and we have a 100% US-based team with highly qualified personnel. So this yields superior marketing results. A lot of agencies outsource and don't quality control to the point that we do. So, do Google Maps matter? Well, if you're watching this, then odds are that you know that they do, right? So essentially, this is what it looks like. This is the 3-pack for Google Maps. This is just a search painter in Daytona Beach. You can see at the top, there's the ad. So that's the pay-per-click, that's Google Ads. There's just one here, Thumbtack. And then immediately below the ad, you have the map. A very small percentage of people will click into that and then click some search result on the map. But a large percentage of people will click into that 3-pack right there where it says Protect Painters of Daytona Beach, Boston Painting, and then Platinum Painting and Coatings. So 44%, it varies a little bit depending on source, but it's consistently at least around 40. So 44% of clicks and calls go to this 3-pack. And a large reason for that is that many searches are now being conducted, more searches are now being conducted on mobile devices than on desktop. And if you think about how you search for things, when you're searching on your phone, that 3-pack makes it really easy. Typically, you can just press into it and call right there from the 3-pack. They'll have a call extension, and you can see the number of reviews they have, their rating. You can go to their website. There are all kinds of activities, but what people tend to do is search for, Painter Daytona Beach, and then they will look at those 3-pack results. They will focus probably first and foremost on the number of reviews and your overall rating. And we covered reputation management in depth 2 episodes ago, so I do encourage you to check that out. That was number 2. And then they'll call. So 44% of the searches, of the clicks and the calls are going to that 3-pack. So yes, Google Maps matter. They matter a lot. They drive a lot of calls. So one of the, we all know Google's important. We all know that when you are searching for something, whether it's a local business or restaurant or whatever it is, we all tend to use Google. So if you're really serious about growing your painting business, and it's not a lifestyle business for you, but it's a real business that you want to make substantial, then you really want to show up in as many places as you can. And so that's where having the Google Ads running, because about 14% of clicks will go to that we covered last episode, is important. So you're showing up in that ad section. Having the Google Maps optimized, which is what we're covering today, is really important. So you're getting 44% of those clicks. And then having your organic, your SEO, dialed in is really important as well, so that you're actually getting the organic clicks as well. And so throughout the last few years, there have been some changes. The Google Map listing, it used to be 7 a number of years ago. It used to be 7, and now it's 3. So it's obviously more difficult to be in it, but it's also, to the victor go the spoils. It's definitely more helpful now than when it was 7. In terms of if you're actually in the 3-pack, then you're going to get a lot of calls. Google also is now serving paid ads in the map results, so that's a little bit different. Again, that's where you do want to make sure that you're running the pay-per-click as well, because you want to show up in as many places as possible. And then Google Home Services is live in some major markets. It hasn't been a huge thing for the painting industry, but in some markets it is live, so it is worth checking out because it's just another spot to be listed for Google. Now, the local pack has become significantly more important over the last several years. And again, you can see just from this screenshot of the Painter Daytona Beach search, you can see how prominent it is, especially on a mobile device. Because a mobile device is just the easiest way. When you're looking at the organic results or even oftentimes the ads, although, again, watch the ad episode because we do cover call extensions and and you can make that pretty easy on people. But the organic, the 3-pack here is oftentimes the easiest for people to just click to call, which is oftentimes what people are going to do. And so here there's a breakdown essentially of the percentage of clicks that are going to the different categories in Google. So you can see that the paid section, the pay per click, where it says ad, oftentimes there will be several of those, 2 or 3 typically. You'll get essentially 14.1% of the clicks will go there. The map is a very small percentage. This should be higher for restaurants or something like that. But in terms of painters, you're getting about 2.3% of clicks where people actually click into that map and click on a painting company and call that way. And then the local pack, you're getting 44% of clicks, which is obviously tremendous. It's almost half. And then the organic, making sure that you have your SEO dialed in fully on your website and your backlinks and all of that, and we'll cover that in more depth in a future episode, is getting almost 40% of the clicks. So you can see 84% of those clicks are going to the Google Maps and the organic results. And that is extremely high quality traffic, because that's traffic that has come to your website or has called you through Google Maps, and in their mind, they've been recommended to you by Google. They searched for the painter in Daytona Beach, and Google said, hey, this is who you should call. You should call ProTech Painters of Daytona Beach. They're the #1 result in our local pack. We think that they're great. And people obviously trust Google. I trust Google. You trust Google. We think that Google has an idea of what they're doing, and that's why we use Google. And so when Google's essentially indirectly recommending you, that drives a lot of business, drives a lot of leads. And if you do have, at that point, some sort of well-structured inbound sales process to handle those leads, because they're still just leads, you still need to close them. If you have an inbound sales process, then that's where your business can really take off. If you haven't checked out Google Local Services, I would check it out, see whether it's available in your market. You can go to adwords.google.com/local services/sign up. So you can just use this link here, adwords.google.com/local services/sign up. Again, because you want to make sure that you're showing up in as many places as possible, being as omnipresent as possible with Google search results. So you want to own the search results. You want to be listed in the home services, the map listing, third-party listings, and organic results. So a lot of what we'll cover and how you actually make sure that you show up in that 3-pack does have to do with third-party listings. Make sure you're using there's something called Yext that we recommend. There are also other sources for building citations that we recommend using on top of Yext to make sure that you are being omnipresent, so to speak, across the internet. And then that's how Google knows, it's part of how Google knows that you are a quality painting company and that they should show you in the top 3 results. Google used to have an issue with some fake map listings. So things like, people listing a home address that wasn't their home address, wasn't really where their business was located, and just because they wanted to show up in a certain city. And so they would choose an address there, maybe their aunt lived there or something, or are people using UPS stores? This is really common, right? People using a UPS store or a PO box and USPS, and having that be their primary company headquarters or a company location, because they want to show up for the Google My Business listing and they want to rank there. I highly discourage you from doing that. If you are doing it, I recommend making a change. So there is obviously a big investment that goes into securing a place and renting and having your vans parked there and whatnot, but highly recommend that you not use a virtual office or that you not use some sort of fake office, because even if it's working now, even if you're ranking, and let's say you're using a UPS store as your office address for Google, that can change at any point. You're essentially building your foundation on quicksand, right? Because it goes against Google's terms of service. What Google wants to know is that if you have listed a location, that is a business location that is manned by your staff during normal business hours, that somebody can come to and walk in and visit you and talk with you. And a UPS store, a USPS store, your aunt's house, things like that are not or do not meet that specification. So I would definitely encourage you, and if you have questions on this, please come to the workshop, which will be in 2 weeks. I definitely encourage you to not do that. So Google has reduced its fake map listings by 70% since 2015, and essentially that means that they are cracking down on these fake listings, and they're actually banning or penalizing companies that do it. So then it gets to the point where if you then have an actual office in the location that you want to rank for, Google has penalized you. And so now you have a black mark on your company, so now it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to rank. So you want to do everything in your power to avoid getting a black mark by Google, because it's just not worth it. So some things that could be hurting your rankings on maps. Again, you need to have an office in the city you're targeting for on Google Maps. Don't try to game the system. It used to work. It still can work a little bit, but it's just not worth the risk. Did you try spam Google with fake locations? Do you have an inconsistent NAP? So name, address, phone number, profile. So this is where making sure that the information that you have about your company is consistent across the web. So making sure on Yext, making sure using Bright Local, you can use Moz Local, we like Bright Local and Yext. Making sure that all of your information is consistent across the web, because that shows Google that you're upkeeping your information. You don't have multiple different phone numbers, you don't have multiple different addresses. You might have several different addresses, but you should have a headquarters, right? And you might have several different phone numbers, but you need to have one phone number that's your primary number, and it needs to be a local number. And then that number needs to be consistent across all of your different citations. Do not spam your city in your company name or category. So on the Google My Business listing, one thing that some companies have done, or some sort of black hat tactics. Black hat just means it's something that Google goes against Google's terms of service and ultimately is dangerous for your company and not a recommended move. But some black hat SEO companies, what they'll do is they will essentially put in the city name into your Google My Business name. So let's say your Google My Business is John's Painting, and you're located in Dallas. Well, the black hat tactic would be to say John's Painting of Dallas, and that would be your name for your Google My Business name. Highly discourage you from doing that unless your company name officially is John's Painting of Dallas. Then you can do it. But if it's not, it goes against Google's terms of service, and you're likely to get blacklisted off of Google, and then ranking is going to be extremely difficult. So Google does that. They have algorithms, they have bots that kind of troll the internet for things, looking for inconsistencies, but they also have manual reviewers, and so they do manually go check these things. So it's just not worth the risk. And then, do you have enough reviews across the web? So that's another thing that hurts people. They'll make sure that their name, address, phone number is consistent. They will have an office in the location, in their Google My Business. They're not doing any black hat tactics, but ultimately they don't have a system in place for generating consistent 5-star reviews. And if you're not consistently generating 5-star reviews, then it is going to be difficult to rank. Unless you're in a non-competitive market, then it's possible, right? If you're out kind of in the middle of nowhere in a town of 10,000 people, then yeah, it's very possible. But if you're in Philadelphia or Dallas or Austin or any kind of Atlanta, any kind of bigger city, you are going to need to have a substantial, consistent flow of inbound reviews, because Google prioritizes those a lot. Remember the point of Google. Right, the point of Google is to feed the best results to the people searching Google, because the people searching Google ultimately are Google's monetizing them through the pay-per-click, through the ads. So the more eyeballs they have, the more that the pay-per-click advertisers bid, the higher those prices go, and the more money Google makes. So as soon as Google is not serving relevant results, as soon as Google's showing painting companies that are subpar, and people are using Google, booking that painting company and having a terrible experience, and if this kind of thing happens over and over again, ultimately people are going to stop using Google to find results, because they're not going to trust Google's advice anymore, right? So That's why the number of reviews and the consistency of reviews and making sure they're authentic reviews from real customers, because Google will find out if you're trying to load up with fake reviews. I highly discourage that. That's why it matters so much, because Google wants to know that the company that they are essentially recommending by putting you in the 3-pack is going to do a good job. And the way to know that is they're doing a good job for other companies or for other customers, right? Through that steady stream of positive reviews. Okay. So we have a formula for getting ranked in the 3-pack. Again, going back to Pareto's principle, you'll hear all kinds of things that you can do to try to get ranked, but ultimately most of them make very little difference. It's about getting the fundamentals right? That 80-20 rule, do the 20% and crush it with the 20% that matters, and then get your 80+% of your results. So you can load up a bunch of photos and geotag them, and all these different kind of tactics. But ultimately, if you do these 4 things right, so we have a 4-step process. If you do the 4 things right, then you're going to rank. Likely. It could take some time. Again, it depends on your market, depends how long you've been around, depends on your number of views, depends on a lot of things, depends on your website. But you're likely to be able to rank in time. Now, if you've been dinged by Google, that could change things a little bit. That could make things pretty difficult. So number 1 is setting up your Google My Business correctly. So setting it up, optimizing your GMB profile. That doesn't mean gaming it. That doesn't mean trying to change the name. That doesn't mean trying to category stuff. If you do several different categories of work, then you should include those. But don't try to category stuff. Don't try to stuff in terms of all your different cities. List the primary areas that you service. In terms of your hours of operation, so this is one that we get questioned a lot on. Let's say you're open from 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. There's someone in your office who's going to answer the phone during those times. And then after 4:30 p.m., it goes to an answering service. And then it still is answered throughout the whole night, but maybe it's just an answering service at that point, and no one's gonna go out and give an estimate or anything like that at that point until the next day at the earliest. I would still say at that point, so long as someone's going to answer the phone, that you would then say that you're open 24/7, right? If you have an answering service that is going to answer that phone, then say you're open, because otherwise Google's unlikely to show you in the 3-pack when you're closed, and if they do show you, it's going to say you're closed, so no one's going to call. Whereas if it says you're open, again, make sure that someone's going to answer that phone, whether it's a member of your staff or whether it's an answering service. Then you're much more likely to continue to receive the inbound leads, and then obviously you can follow up with them the next morning. So if no one's open, stick to whenever someone's going to answer the phone as your hours. But if you do have the ability through outsourcing it to an answering service to make sure that phone will be answered, then I would recommend that you say 24/7 for your hours. Upload photos. Make sure that you're uploading photos of you, of your team, in uniform, of your jobs. Of great kitchen cabinet jobs do well. Obviously interior, exterior, different rooms, whatnot. So make sure you have a lot of authentic photos. Don't use stock imagery. Use real photos. You can upload photos of wrap vans and things like that. It's really not as important. What people are really interested in seeing is you, your team, the owner, your team working out at jobs, and then ultimately some of your work. So make sure you have those different photos uploaded. And then make sure you are also being active in the Google My Business. So we recommend at a minimum posting once every 90 days, but I encourage you to post weekly to your Google My Business, and that is something that we do for all of our clients to help them rank in the 3-pack. And then there's a Q&A section to Google My Business as well, where people can ask questions. Make sure that you are always responding to those questions. Don't ever leave those hanging. And for reviews, make sure that you are always responding to the reviews, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. Make sure that you are responding. It shows that you care, the business cares, and it shows Google that you're on top of it. Google wants to see that you're on top of everything. So that's number one, is setting up and optimizing your Google My Business. Number two is about having your presence consistent and widespread across the web, right? So there are all different kinds of directories and citations, and you need to make sure that you are present in the big ones and the main ones. There are 4 different aggregators that you need to make sure that you're present in, that feed out to several hundred different citation sources. And then there are niche specific ones that you need to make sure you target as well, oftentimes location specific based on wherever you are. And it's making sure that your name, address, phone number is consistent and that you're spread across the web. Again, it's giving you the inbound links, it's giving you the authority to your GMB, and it's also letting Google know that you are on top of your business, that your information is consistent across the web. You don't, it's not a shoddy business, it's well run. Excuse me. Number 3 is make sure you have reviews. So if you have not watched episode 2 of Learn, Do, Grow, I encourage you to do that. That's all about reputation management. We go into great depth in terms of how to develop a consistent flow of inbound positive reviews, making sure that you're getting those 5-star reviews, but you do need to consistently have those coming in. That is a huge trust signal for Google. And then the 4th component is your on-page SEO. So for your website, that also impacts whether or not you are going to rank in the 3-pack. It's not just your Google My Business profile, it also has to do with your website, making sure that you have your location in your header tag, making sure that your name, address, phone number is consistent, making sure that you have the inbound links, making sure that your Google My Business profile links to your website. Just making sure you have all the fundamentals dialed in. So for number 1, claiming and optimizing your Google My Business listing, make sure that you have a login for your Google My Business account. So, we do that for all of our clients. We make sure you can log in. Don't ever just hand off the keys to an SEO company or marketing company. Make sure that you can always log in and check out what's going on. Again, some companies don't employ white hat tactics exclusively. They do some things that are a little bit shady, and it is not something you want to play with Google. So make sure you're able to log in and check out what's going on whenever you want. Don't add any keywords to your company name. We covered that. Your company name is your company name. Right? You're not going to change your company name unless you officially change it, or unless you file a DBA or something like that. But then you kind of pigeonhole yourself. If you're John's Painting of Dallas, then you are John's Painting of Dallas, right? If you ever wanted to open a branch at Fort Worth or something like that, it's going to be a lot more difficult now. Make sure that you have your website address in your Google My Business. That's an important inbound link for your site. Use a local number. So 800 numbers, they do not do the trick. When people want to do business with companies that are down the street, right? That's how business is still largely conducted. It's how people feel. They trust the local company more, the local guy more. He's going to care more. And so even if you are a local company, if you have an 800 number, then people think, oh, this is a big corporation. I'm not going to call them. So don't use 800 numbers. If you have an 800 number, you can still have it as a secondary number in your Google My Business listing, but make your primary number, make it a local number. It's going to make it more likely that you get ranked, and it's also going to help with your conversions. It's going to make it more likely that people trust you and call you because you're their neighbor. You're not this big corporation. Use a local address. Again, we covered this. Do not use a P.O. box. Do not use a UPS store. If you're doing that and you don't have a physical location, I would encourage you to consider the investment of opening a physical location and of changing your address, because ultimately your foundation is built on quicksand right now. It's a dicey proposition what you're doing. Upload photos, as many as possible. Use personal photos, so don't use stock imagery. Don't do that. People know stock imagery. People can see it a mile away. Use photos of yourself, the owner, the team, your work, your vans wrapped, your marketing materials, coupons, anything that kind of gets your brand out there, but What resonates the best with people is the team, the owner, and your work. And then list your hours of operations and your services offered. Again, not trying to game the system, not trying to lie, but just making sure that you're being thorough there. And then with Google My Business, there's also insights. So a lot of people don't realize that, and this is part of why you want to make sure that you have a login. You can go to Insights, and you can actually see the traffic that is coming to your Google My Business profile, right? And whether it's working or not, and you know, ultimately you can figure out whether you're converting from it or not. So it's all data that you absolutely need to have, want to have, right? Okay, now for some Google My Business best practices, make sure you're uploading photos and adding them on a consistent basis. So this is not a set it and forget it play. You know, people understand if you have a Facebook profile or an Instagram or Twitter, you know, that you want to consistently be posting, right? Social media management is pretty mainstream. People understand the importance of having an online presence, of showing their work, updated work, and continually posting. But your GMB listing is the same, and a lot of people don't realize that. You want to make sure that you're consistently uploading new photos of your work, of your team, of things you're proud of promotions that you have. It is a live listing, and the more active you are on it, the more Google is going to reward you by moving you up. Again, they have an algorithm. There are a lot of factors that go into it, but activity is an important factor in showing Google that you are staying on top of it and that you're continually adding new photos that are authentic photos that you or your team took. Make sure that you're posting at least once every 90 days. Really, weekly is definitely preferable. We always make sure that we post weekly for our clients. Respond to your reviews and then answer any questions that get posted. And you can feed some questions, so be careful about doing it too much. But you can feed some questions. So if you have, you know, a friend or family member or whatnot who lives in the area, you can potentially feed a question like, "Hey, you know, John, what makes, you know, you say you use quality paint. Like, why does that matter, right? Or you know, what are some things that can go wrong with a paint job, right?" And that gives you an opportunity to showcase why the premium materials that you use are worth the extra investment. Right, and why it matters. And just slapping up any paint is not going to get the job done. Okay, so that's number one, claiming and optimizing your Google My Business listing, and then making sure you're continually active with it. Number two is, again, build that citations and consistency with the name, address, phone number. So there are really hundreds, thousands of citations across the web. You want to make sure that you at least have several hundred running, consistent use of your company name, address, and phone number, and then you want to limit duplicate or incorrect business information. So sometimes we'll come across a company that has, you know, 5 different listings or 7 different listings in the yellow pages, right? Maybe the phone numbers is different, or maybe just repeat duplicate listings. You definitely want to make sure that all that is cleaned up, because that shows Google that you're not on top of it. So it's about making sure you have only one listing in each citation and that it's consistently dialed in across the web. Now, the aggregators are the most important component of these citations. So they distribute to 300 plus online search sites. So the 4 aggregators are Factual, Axiom, Infogroup, and Newstar. These are the 4 most important aggregators, again, because they're feeding to 300 plus online search sites. So you want to make sure that your information with those 4 is absolutely correct. You want to put forth the investment to get your information to those 4, because you get a lot of bang for your buck with the aggregators. Now, in terms of the best tools for citations, we always start with Yext. Yext links to over 75 different citation sources. It is an ongoing investment. It's not very much, but it's ongoing, meaning you need to keep paying for it. But one of the big advantages of Yext is that it's uploaded immediately. When we used to do everything manually, you know, every single citation we would build manually. The problem you run into that is it takes a long time to get them all approved. You run into issues with the authentication process. You just get rejected for various reasons and need to resubmit. So starting with Yext gets you on the map immediately, gets you on the board immediately, where now all of a sudden you have a really good foundation. But Yext by itself is not enough. And this is where a lot of SEO companies and marketing agencies, this is where they'll stop. A lot of companies use Yext, but then they won't do anything else. And they'll just keep paying the Yext fee, and you'll be in sort of those 75, 80 primary citation sources, and that's it. But you need to take it a step further. We like Bright Local a lot. There's White Spark, Advice Local, Moz Local. Excuse me. But essentially, you need to go into much more niche-specific, city-specific directories. And by using these different directories, you can actually find all those smaller directories and citations, and that's really going to make the difference. Oftentimes, that's really what will set you aside and what will get you ranked, whereas your efforts before were not yielding fruit. And as part of our strategy session, if you run a strategy session with Painter Marketing Pros, we'll actually conduct a free citation review where we review all your citations across the web and figure out whether there are any that are inconsistent or duplicate or that need to be changed, and then how prominent your company is across the web as well. Again, you can schedule that at www.paintermarketingpros.com/schedule. And it'll look something like this, where essentially we show you different relevant directories that may be missing where things look good, what percentage of, typically for your market, we'll identify 40 of the most important directories, niche, and then some of the bigger ones, and then what percentage seem to be good versus what percentage are missing or are incorrect. And knowledge is power, right? It's good to just know what your online web presence, what it is for your company. So some citations best practices. You always want to manually claim and optimize your Google My Business. So never automate that, never outsource that. You can outsource it to a respectable marketing agency, but that needs to be a manual process. It needs to be very hands-on. Using a tool like Yext for direct API to 50, at least the top 50 citation listings is really important. Make sure that you're getting listed in the major data aggregators, so those 4 that we covered before. Sometimes that costs extra, but you need to do it. And then the thing that kind of takes your citation game to the next level is leveraging a tool like Bright Local or White Spark to find those niche listing opportunities. So niche for painters, and then also niche for whatever directories and citation sources are available for your specific location, because oftentimes there are small locally focused citation opportunities, and that can oftentimes make the difference between getting into that 3-pack and not getting into it. And then make sure that you have lots of real reviews. Again, if you haven't checked out episode 2 of Learn to Grow, I definitely encourage you to do that. Here you can see Presto Painting Services listed number 1, and they also have by far the most reviews of these 3. Right? Mark's Painting has 89, and Brothers Colors Painting of Tampa has 12. So these are 3 painting near Painter Marketing Pros in Tampa, Florida. And it doesn't always shake out to where the most reviews is on top, but it oftentimes does, because reviews is definitely one of the most critical components to the Google algorithm for how they're choosing to rank the Google My Business listings for different companies. And to make sure you are driving those consistent reviews, make sure you're leveraging tools to request a review after every service call. So make sure you have some automations in place so that, in standard operating procedures, so that reviews are being requested after every paint job, after every single job that you complete. Make sure that those automations are in place. Leave a printed review card, so have your painters actually leave a card, typically with a QR code, so that the customer, it's all about removing the barriers to execution. It's all about making it as easy and streamlined as possible for the customer. So make sure that they can scan the QR code and then immediately go leave you reviews on Google. And there are a lot of different tools, again, that we covered pretty extensively 2 episodes ago, in terms of how you can automate this stuff. And then train your painters to plant the seed and to deliver a world-class experience. So, if you want to have world-class reviews, make sure that you're running a world-class company, right? And that you're delivering the value, that you're always doing a good job and communicating well with the customer, and have your painters really take accountability. A lot of this is a cultural thing as well, in terms of the reviews not just being another task that needs to be done, or something that they just have to do, but reward them. There's been a lot of proof that there have been studies that people respond more to social recognition and things of that nature than they do to monetary compensation. So, when painters are able to generate 5-star reviews for jobs, then doing things like rewarding them with the crews, or acknowledging them, maybe plaques in the office, whatever kind of recognition your company deems appropriate, will help. But ultimately, it needs to become ingrained in the culture, where people really, lead painters really pride themselves on trying to secure those reviews, and ultimately it becomes a standard. It's kind of a fun competition, but part of your company's culture. Make a call after the paint job is done to walk them through the review process. So we found this to be really helpful, where your the administrative assistant or whoever it might be picks up the phone and calls. We call it a happy call. You want to make sure that the customer is happy. You always want to follow up after a job well done, and just say, hey, want to make sure you were happy with everything, that we met or exceeded your expectations. And then, okay, great, we're so happy that we did. Would you mind taking a moment to leave us a review? I sent you over an email. Did you receive it? Oh, no, you didn't. Okay, let me resend it right now. Are you by a computer, or can you look at it on your phone? Okay, great. If it's okay with you, I can show you how to do it right now. It's really easy, right? And you can actually just kind of hold their feet to the fire in a way, and kind of walk them through the review process right there. But again, the reviews are so critical to your Google My Business ranking, to getting into that 3-pack, that having a dialed-in system to consistently secure those reviews for the good work that you're already doing is critical. And then make sure that you're building the recognition when you're getting those 5-star reviews from customers. Make sure that the painters who are delivering that world-class experience, who are planting that seed, who are leaving that review card with the QR code, who are saying this really would make a big difference to me and to my company. Make sure you're rewarding those painters and acknowledging them, because that's really important. And some of the best tools for review automation, there's Nearby Now, Review Buzz, Bird Eye, Customer Lobby, all that stuff. The actual tool that you use is less important than the fact that you use a tool and that you make it an integral part of the company culture. So you definitely want to use a tool, because if you rely on doing everything manually, say, well, we'll call every customer and follow up after X number of days, and obviously that's how things fall through the cracks. So the more that you can systematize this, the more that you can automate it, the better. But you do need to make it an integral part of your company's culture, because ultimately your painters are the ones on site. Right? Your painters are the ones interacting with the customer on a daily basis. So they need to be delivering that experience, and they need to know that ultimately a big component of their job performance is securing these 5-star reviews, is making sure that the customer's happy, making sure that they've been prepared in a way to leave that review. So then the 4th step, the first step is claiming and optimizing your Google My Business and making sure you're consistently posting to it. Second step is making sure that your NAP, your name, address, phone number, is correct and consistent across the web, and that you have a widespread internet presence. Third step is making sure that you have a system in place for generating consistent 5-star reviews, and that you're building up your authority online that way. And then 4th step is on-page optimization, so for your website. Because this also does impact your Google My Business. Your Google My Business is linked to your website. Google knows it's the same company, so it's all interrelated. And here's an example of a company that built our site, Gary's Roof and House Painting. You can see that you want to have the office location listed. You want to have the phone number listed, and you want to make sure that this stuff is consistent, that it's prominent on the site, and then that phone number and that office, or excuse me, that address, that is what needs to be consistent in all the different citations, right? That it can't change. There are different rotating numbers, and we can get into this in the workshop in terms of call tracking, right? Because you want to know what calls come through Google Ads. You want to know what calls come through the Google My Business listing. You want to know what calls come through the organic listing. So there are different ways to track different numbers and have rotating numbers. But when you have a primary number like this on the site, that's the number that you want also on your Google My Business listing. That's the number that you want spread out through all your different citations across the web. You want to have one consistent number. And then you can have rotating numbers elsewhere. And that's how you call track, and that's how you attribute your leads to different sources. But you need to have one consistent number, name, address, phone number, one consistent phone number throughout the whole web. And then there's also off-page SEO, right? So the on-page SEO was making sure that you just have your address listed, making sure that your phone number and everything is consistent with what's off-page. And then off-page is claiming to optimize your Google My Business listing, having all your citations consistent, building up your online reviews, leveraging best-in-class tools like Nearby Now, Bird Eye, Reviews Buzz, Customer Lobby, Podium, things like that. And then building authoritative links back to your website. So we haven't talked too much about this, but building up those links builds the credibility of your site. By building the credibility of your site, you're building up the credibility of your Google My Business listing. Again, all of this stuff is interrelated. And then strategic content syndication. So this is a different concept. Strategic content syndication is very important. And this is where we get into some pretty next level stuff. So it used to be, you post a blog to your website once a month, and that was enough. That showed that you're active. It showed Google, the website's being added to, things are being maintained, and you're developing new content. But things have changed. And a simple blog post on your site is just not going to cut it anymore. Ultimately, you're not getting any backlinks from that. And you're not really building up a lot of authority through that. It's better than nothing, don't get me wrong. Having a consistently generating new content on your site is better than nothing. But ultimately, Google, it's become so competitive. This space has become so competitive that you really have to take things to a level that you didn't used to have to take them to 5 years ago. So we at Painter Marketing Pros have implemented something, a new authority signal generation approach that is really helpful. And I'm going to get too into the technical of it, but it's a cutting edge content marketing platform for generating authority signals and then building EAT to achieve superior search visibility. So you need to satisfy the search algorithm's hunger for EAT. What is EAT? EAT is expertise. So showing that you have quality, structured, and media-rich content. Again, this goes back to posting consistent imagery to your Google My Business, posting consistent articles with backlinks, authority. So what we do is we syndicate this content through a lot of high-quality news sites, ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, etc. So, and then trust. So passing the trust and the page rank with the link signals, right? So essentially, what we do for our clients is we create articles similar to blog posts. We'll also include them on the site, but then we actually get those articles published on ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, and these big time news sites. And then through getting them published, we'll have them backlink to our client's website as well. And then we'll also embed the Google My Business listing we'll embed the map listing into the different articles that are being disseminated across the web. So it's an extremely powerful content syndication strategy. It has a lot to do with the way Google's algorithm works. It is pretty technical when you get into it, but ultimately, from a bird's eye view, what's happening is we're spreading content that's then linking back to the customer's website from really authoritative news sources that has a Google My Business, a map embed that's then generating all kinds of authority, both for the website, for the organic ranking, and for the Google My Business ranking. It's not going to get too into the SEO periodic table, but this is just some helpful stuff if you want to kind of review this. It's basically a good guide to what's good and what's bad for SEO. But yeah, Google, it's constantly evolving, right? The algorithm's constantly evolving. What worked in 2000 didn't work in 2010. What works in 2010 didn't work in 2015. And what works in 2015, it doesn't work today, right? And so Google's constantly evolving, and marketing agencies have to evolve with them. And painting companies, if you are doing this marketing yourself, you need to evolve as well. And there are a lot of black hat and gray hat tactics out there, which go against Google's terms of service, but this is not one of those, right? Everything that we do is above board. Everything we do is white hat, because ultimately it's just not worth pissing off Google. It's not worth Google flagging your account, flagging your company, because then it is a desperate road to come back at that point. So some special local SEO ranking factors for Google My Business specifically. A lot of what we've been talking about applies to both Google My Business and to your website. But Google uses a different algorithm for local searches. It's definitely a bit different, which places importance on 3 important ranking categories of supporting signals. So proximity. So how close is the place of business to the person searching? Using zip codes and geocoordinates in your content can help here a little bit, kind of geotagging some of your images. We touched on that earlier. The rest you can't control. Don't try to game it. Don't try to control it when you can. Don't make up virtual offices or use UPS stores in different cities, because that is a recipe for disaster. It is just not worth it. Relevance. How relevant is the search term for the business? So this you can control. This is about optimizing your content and having the correct on-page signals on your site, making sure your Google My Business listing is optimized, use of your business categories and the content section headings, making sure that you have your niche citations built out, again using something like Whitespark or Bright Local, making sure you have your local and painting specific citations built out in addition to the bigger ones, and then your review velocity, having a consistent stream of 5-star reviews coming into the business. And then prominence. So what's the authority of the local business? And this gets back to the EAT, that we touched on before. Where has your brand been mentioned? Again, disseminating through these news sources is a huge trust signal. It's a huge power play for Google. Link signals, numbers, how many reviews do you have versus your competition? And then using the syndication that we use will dramatically improve the prominence of your entity and your authority over a period of 3 to 6 months. So it does somewhat depend on where you're at as a business. How long have you had a physical location? How long have you had your Google My Business listing? How many reviews do you have? But 3 to 6 months is typically how long it takes to start seeing really good results from this strategy. So some kind of higher level SEO stuff, search engine optimization. So on page, make sure that you, and again, we're gonna cover this in a lot more depth in a follow-up episode that's gonna focus exclusively on SEO. But it's relevant to Google My Business listing and making sure you get into that 3-pack. So I want to cover it now too. Make sure that for on page you have pages for each of your main services and your main cities. Optimize your titles, your H1 tags, your URLs, your images, etc. Have your alt tags for your images, and make sure you have unique content for all of your pages. So don't just duplicate content. That's a mistake. Your Google My Business claim and optimize your maps. Make sure that you have a login. If you're using a marketing company, make sure that you still have a login. Add Yext or some other citation management platform. Add it to all the major data aggregators. So those 4 that we covered, make 100% sure that your NAP is added and consistent there. Put in a system in place for driving your online reviews, making sure you have a good cadence of 5-star reviews, and then add new citations on an ongoing basis using Bright Local or Whitespark or Moz Local or one of those where you're hitting those smaller, more niche specific, more location specific citations. Ongoing content, so push a new blog post out and syndicate it via Signal Engine. So this is that EAT. This is getting that authority, that backlink juice from Fox and ABC and NBC and all these big time news sites. And then leveraging Signal's so expertise, authority, and trust. Have multiple do follow links back to your website, back to your GMB listing and internal pages on your site. Have multiple map embeds. So again, going with the syndicating the content, make sure you're embedding maps in that content, and then have fresh content continually added to your site in the form of press releases and or blogs. That's kind of a lot. That's how to effectively rank in the 3-pack for your Google My Business listing. Again, if you want to contact us, you can send me an email directly, brandon@paintermarketingpros.com. You can give us a call at 1-800-813-4385. And you can also schedule a free lead flow acceleration session if you go to www.paintermarketingpros.com/schedule. Again, that's www.paintermarketingpros.com/schedule. And this, if you do schedule a lead flow acceleration session, we'll do an analysis of your online visibility. We'll get you a custom keyword list of the most important search terms for your business and your location. Ranking report that shows you where you currently rank, analysis of your online directory listings and your consistency throughout the web, your NAP consistency, analysis of your online reviews and reputation, provide recommendations there, analyze your social presence, and ultimately take a look at the website conversion effectiveness of your site. Do you have all the trust signals in the right place? Do you have a call to action in the top right? Are your header tags structured correctly, etc.? So it is a very helpful thing that we offer free of charge. It's absolutely no expectation on our end, but we do offer it. So thank you for your time. Remember, we will be having our monthly workshop in 2 weeks. So this one's going to be a little bit different actually, because there were some timing snafus with the pay-per-click workshop from July. So we're actually doing a dual day workshop in August. I believe it's 18th and 19th or 19th and 20th. The PCA will send out some notifications, but we are having a dual day workshop where we're going to be taking an in-depth dive with company owners on the Google My Business listing, getting it ranked and answering specific questions, and then also on Google Ads on pay-per-click. So it's going to be all things Google in this month. So thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking with some of you during the workshop live.